definitely take the time to talk to the business and get their view about quality services and what it is that they're looking for from you as a provider. And you can build some of those requirements into your tools to help you automate and streamline and measure that workflow with that quality of service for the customer in mind. I also believe that people should be realistic about what you can automate with tools. One of the common mistakes that I see happen is we tend to buy tools to resolve issues that don't really have anything to do with technology automation. So we need to be very careful and creative in our thinking about what we can automate with our tools with respect to service management and what kinds of things we shouldn't. We can't forget about the human element within service management, and we shouldn't try to over-engineer or over-automate our solutions and lose some of that human element and some of that control. The human factor is really important in service quality, and if you don't believe that, just ask any of your business customers, and I'm sure that they'll agree with me. There are a few different levels that I think every organization should take into account when they're thinking about tools. And this speaks to the bullet point that says planning beyond the horizon as well. There are strategic benefits in ITSM tools. There are tactical benefits and there are operational benefits and requirements. Whenever you're thinking about any particular requirement for tools, think about it on all those three levels. What functionality or what automation within a tool can offer me some strategic benefit? So an example of that might be, we're looking at things like portfolio management, and we want our technology, our ITSM tool, to be able to help contribute to the benefits of portfolio management. So you may want to look at requirements that help you justify a return on investment or a cost of service, for example, to help you plan in terms of what you're going to deliver with respect to services and how much money you can spend on those. So tools can offer a strategic benefit as well as just tactical and operational benefits. So look at things like, look at each requirement with those three perspectives in mind and try to jot down how every requirement will contribute to each of those three. And that makes it a good way to narrow down the list and ensure that the requirements you have really are requirements relevant to your organization. You should also use your maturity path as a guide. How you have evolved within IT service management in your organization is a really good indicator of where you're heading. So, for example, a lot of companies start out with trying to help create a service desk, or evolving it from a help desk, for example. They try to offer some self-service to customers. They try to build knowledge bases for service desk staff. That will lead them into things like incident, change, and configuration management. So if you look at how your ITSM practices are evolving, that will give you a sense of where your automation requirements are evolving as well. So you can try to think ahead into the future about what process areas you may be looking at and whether or not you should be considering those as part of your current requirements development for tools. And I always advise people to look at the service life cycle within ITIL and make sure that every requirement you have can map back within that service life cycle to a various life cycle stage, and that helps you with process integration points, because one of the benefits in ITSM tools today in the maturity and the robustness is the ability for them to integrate into various parts of ITSM practice within the service life cycle. Another area that I think every company should undertake before they start building requirements is having a look at some of the plans within the organization. So examples are, have a look at your IT plans. You may have an IT strategic plan. There may be capacity plans and availability plans. Hopefully there are some continuity plans in place. Refresh your thinking about what's in those plans and look for opportunities to create requirements for tools that will help support those things and help to link with those things. Another good area, especially when it comes to connecting with the business, is to have a look at business plans. There are some great opportunities to leverage delivering on business plans through ITSM tools. And so there's some classic examples that we see in the industry today. Our business customers themselves are probably thinking about, if they haven't already, gotten into some kind of customer self-help or the use of product catalogs. Well, some of the ITSM tools today offer those very things, and you can actually leverage an ITSM tool to deliver on some business process. That helps you build a stronger business case for buying robust tools, and it increases the return on investment. So look for opportunities to create some business productivity and use ITSM tools for non-ITSM uses as well. And there's lots and lots of examples out there. So those are some before the tool thinking, I think, that would be helpful for organizations to make sure that you've got the horse before the cart and you're using a very logical, rational thought process to approach developing requirements for tools. Then the next thing I think is you need to look beyond the obvious. When we think about tools to support IT processes, we think about it in terms of just basic functionality to execute workflow. But there are some other things that you could be thinking about to help push your idea of need to the next level. And this is where using tools as strategic partners comes into play. There's a lot of business and IT innovation opportunities through using tools on a strategic level. Things like analytical trending. If you have a tool or you're looking into the market, look for tools that offer you the ability to analyze the patterns of usage of your services that your customers have, that analyze things like capacity and demand, or provide business intelligence around how different customers use the same services differently. All of these things make your tool a strategic partner and help you look at whether or not there are areas of the business that are underserved, that can open up new opportunities for you to create additional services or to package services in different ways to meet the needs of a variety of customers. That's really using a tool truly as a strategic partner. Something that's really hot in the industry today is portfolio management and the use of service portfolio management to manage IT investments. Lots of tools can offer that capability, and you should be looking to leverage those kinds of things as you go forward. Now, you may not need this today, but you probably will need it sooner than you think. And so planning for that in your requirements today will save you money in the long run. There's some of the more common things like self-help for customers and IT staff, looking at opportunities for cost and risk avoidance, and this speaks to perhaps the model of delivery. We've got tools today that are hosted by the vendor where very little infrastructure requirement is necessary for the customer, that there's a lot less risk and capital cost involved. So think about these things. Find out what's in the market and look at and analyze how all of these different models might apply in your instance. Another area that's not really paid attention to as much as it should be is the idea of risk and reward. There's a white paper that accompanies this webcast that I think will be made available soon, and it talks a lot about making sure that the vendor is a right fit for you and your organization. When you purchase an ITSM tool or acquire a tool or lease it or license it, you're really entering into a relationship with the vendor who offers that product. And you need to be thinking about what kind of a relationship is of most benefit to you, and what kind of post-sales needs you're going to have for training, ongoing support, updates to the products, listening to some of the inputs that you may have as a customer and a user of this tool, etc. There's a lot of different models available in the marketplace today, and you need to be able to become familiar with what's out there and decide on what kind of a relationship with the vendor you're looking for. And that really helps you to focus and refine your requirements to be much more native to your organization. There are companies out there who offer trial subscription to tools, so you could even try on some solutions to see how they fit. So there are some low-cost ways of getting into the game and trying to help you refine really what you're looking for. One of the other areas that I think needs to be paid attention to when it comes to being innovative about how we think of tools is looking at the rate of organizational change. If we go back a little bit and think about Grandma's patchwork quilt. The rate of organizational change is usually a catalyst to how we end up with a patchwork of solutions. We underestimate how quickly the business needs change, how quickly our own IT organization changes, and we don't plan that far enough into the horizon. So we end up having to slap tools on top of tools to try to keep up with the rate of change. So sit back and take some time to think about what overall in the past year, for example, has been the rate of organizational change, and take that into account going forward. Very rarely does the rate of organizational change slow down over time. If anything, it tends to speed up. And so you need to think further and further ahead about what your needs are. Also think about what kinds of information and data you have that you need to migrate and integrate into a new solution or an updated solution. This is an area that can quickly accelerate into an extremely high cost if these things haven't been thought out well in terms of the kinds of tool you select and what the migration implications are for the existing data. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, we don't want to spend onerous amounts of money on migration because we haven't thought things out clearly. Every organization, or most organizations, have architectural constraints or opportunities. Now, from a corporate level, there are probably some architectural designs in place or standards in place that you need to be thinking about with respect to how an ITSM solution fits into that. So there could be specific corporate policies related to the type of platforms used. So you need to take those into account as well when you're developing your requirements to make sure that what you are acquiring is going to fit into the overall corporate standards for architecture, and it could even uncover additional opportunities. So those are some areas that I think organizations need to think a little bit about before you actually get down to putting pen on paper and developing your requirements. So now we're going to just take a look at actually defining some needs. When it comes down to getting to the pen on paper and establishing requirements, one of the first areas that organizations need to think about are not only what are the requirements, but which of those are mandatory requirements and which of those are desirable requirements. Because most oftentimes we acquire tools through going out for a request for tender or some type of a proposal, and we need to give our vendors some ideas of what things do we have to have in terms of functionality and performance, and what things are really nice to have. We want to be able to have them, but we absolutely don't need them. So what you need to do is to define what do those things mean in your organization. So I put up an example on the slide here for a mandatory requirement. It should be a tool function or a capability that a process activity can't be executed efficiently without, or one that provides a significant benefit or cost saving to the organization. And there's an example that goes along with that. Now, this may not fit in every organizational circumstance, but definitely you need to sit down and figure out what is mandatory to you, and be careful not to overkill on this. We tend to think everything is mandatory, or at least we start out that way, and we may spend unnecessary funds, or we may exclude perfectly capable tool solutions because we've overstated our mandatory requirements. So you can use this definition as a guide, or you can create your own, but make sure that it's realistic. In terms of desirable requirements, that should be a tool function or a capability that provides a benefit that would not exclude a tool from